In addition to alcohol and other drugs, other factors can cause someone's driving to be impaired. Most of these other factors fall into three main categories: distractions, fatigue and drowsy driving, and emotions, such as aggressive driving. Let's start this module by taking a closer look at one of the most prevalent issues here: distracted driving. Ideally, drivers should maintain their full focus on driving. However, some drivers divert some of their attention to objects and events unrelated to driving, reducing their ability to drive safely. Let's first discuss what it means to be distracted. Distracted driving is drawing or directing one's attention to a different object or event or in different directions simultaneously, or to have one's attention drawn away from the task at hand or what is considered the priority effort. Bottom line, a distracted driver is not actually paying attention to driving. You may have seen other drivers doing things inside their vehicles that could be distracting. Things like eating, using a cell phone, adjusting a radio, passengers, reaching for loose objects, grooming, inputting destination information into a navigation system. There are also distractions outside of the vehicle, like crash scenes, billboards, pedestrians, bicyclists, animals, even other passenger vehicles and emergency vehicles. When we think of impaired driving, we often think of the effects of alcohol or other drugs. But there are forms of impairment that have nothing to do with alcohol or drugs, and they can impact us all. We will explore how being distracted can put you and other roadway users at risk. Distractions including electronic devices, other occupants, and objects outside the vehicle, all of which can distract our attention from driving. And then there is the common problem of drowsiness. The fact that drowsiness can result in tragic consequences is no surprise, so we'll discuss ways to prevent fatigue while on the road. Finally, we discuss how being highly emotional can increase your risk of collision too, including when another driver nearby is angry or otherwise upset. We will discuss the latest tips regarding what to do when you encounter another driver with road rage. One of the major issues in driving safety over the past few years has been distracted driving, and with good reason. It seems like some drivers are paying attention to everything except their driving. Grooming. talking on the cell phone, or reading. These drivers don't realize that their driving requires much focus to know what is happening around them, make good decisions, and take accurate action in response to changing conditions. These other tasks draw drivers' attention partly or completely away from driving. Typically, distractions can be divided into three types. A driver can be distracted by one or all of these. The first type of distraction is visual. Visual distractions cause you to move your eyes away from the road. For example, when you look at the radio or a passenger in your vehicle. The second type of distraction is physical. Physical distractions mean you are taking a physical action unrelated to driving, such as reaching for an object or eating a sandwich while driving. This type of distraction generally involves moving at least one hand from the wheel. The third type of distraction is mental, or cognitive distraction, when your mind is drawn away from driving, such as using a voice-activated text messaging system. Because there are few outward signs of its occurrence, cognitive distraction is more difficult to study scientifically than other distractions. However, one recent study has helped shed more light on the effects of drivers' brains being drawn away from the driving task. Your eyes are on the road, your hands are on the wheel, but your brain is not focused on driving. So, when you are looking at something straight in front of you, you should be able to see it, but you don't. It's just like having tunnel vision behind the wheel. It's because you are cognitively distracted. Dr. David Strayer and his team at the University of Utah undertook a landmark research project that challenges the current mindset about distracted driving. Building upon previous visual and manual distraction research and 5 decades of aviation psychology, looking at pilot distraction, this groundbreaking study focuses on mental distractions, also known as cognitive distraction. Using brain-based metrics, a driving simulator, and a first-of-its-kind instrumented vehicle, participants were studied in non-driving behaviors, from listening to the radio, or talking on a mobile phone, or using voice-activated dashboard apps. The study proves that you are not necessarily safer just because your eyes are on the road and your hands are on the wheel if your brain is not focused on driving. The research team used many measures to unlock the secret to what really happens inside the brain of a cognitively distracted driver. Using a special EEG-configured skull cap with electrodes, participants' brain activity was analyzed to determine mental focus levels. Cameras inside the car were used to test the ability to see hazards in the driving environment by tracking eye and head movement. While driving, red and green lights were flashed. Participants were asked to ignore the red lights and engage a switch when the green light flashed, and reaction time was measured. While driving without distractions, drivers missed green lights and engaged the switch. Researchers then played an audiobook while the participants were driving. Listening to the audiobook caused the participants to miss more green lights than just driving. Next, drivers were asked to answer math problems. During this portion of the study, drivers missed stop signs, and the cameras showed horizontal eye movement while driving decreased. Essentially, The driver stops scanning as much as when doing single tasks. Drivers were then asked to interact with speech-to-text and voice command devices to answer emails and text. Researchers found the driver's response time to engage the switch after the green light was delayed more than during any other task. The study showed that when people engage in more difficult tasks, they tend to miss more and more. Participants missed engaging switches in this study when green lights flashed. In reality, drivers are missing pedestrians, motorcycles, and stop signs. Dr. Strayer hopes this research will start a dialogue to reel in some of these behaviors that are just unsafe and not become totally driven by whatever device is ringing or shining or competing for our attention. Any one of these distractions can have life-threatening consequences. The results of distracted driving are scary. Inattention is involved in more than 1 million crashes each year. Returning to our driving equation of perception, decision, and action, we can see how distractions increase our risk. Distractions can prevent a driver from perceiving important traffic events. Slow the speed drivers make decisions, and reduce our ability to execute evasive maneuvers if needed. The need for mental distraction research will continue as new vehicle systems and technologies are developed. Understanding how they play a role in a driver's ability to maintain their attention on the roadway will be critical. As shown, even in the simplest tasks, the more things we try to do at once, the less effective we can be at any single one. It demonstrates the need to focus primarily on driving when we are behind the wheel. A strong argument could be made for, there is no such thing as multitasking. Humans can only focus on one thing at a time. That is why we must switch back and forth among different tasks. But there is a lag involved, which slows down the speed at which we can fully return to a single task. That is one reason for additional risk when distracted behind the wheel. Good drivers only focus on one task behind the wheel: driving. Drivers using cell phones is one of the biggies regarding distracted driving. And the research is clear. Cell phones are a major distraction behind the wheel. Talking on a cell phone increases your chances of collision by 4 times. That is a 400% higher chance of crashing. It is estimated that cell phone use accounts for over 300,000 collisions and over 2,500 motor vehicle fatalities each year. This is the case regardless of whether the cell phone is handheld or hands-free. Research shows no difference in risk between the two modes. The mental distraction involved in the conversation is even more distracting than physically manipulating the cell phone. Both modes can divert a driver's attention so much that a collision results. Hands-free is not risk-free. Texting on your cell phone is another distraction. In fact, research shows that texting while driving is even more risky than talking on your cell phone. Texting increases your risk because it involves all 3 types of distractions simultaneously, making it one of the riskiest driving distractions. When texting, you take your eyes off the road, which is a visual distraction. Take at least one hand off the steering wheel to manipulate the phone and the texting keyboard, the physical distraction, and pay attention to the message being sent and received instead of paying attention to the road. Texting involves visual, physical, and mental distractions, making it a true triple threat for distracting a driver. Eyes off the road time can increase 400% when texting, as drivers tend to look away for longer durations and more frequently. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, sending or reading a text takes your eyes off the road for 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's like driving the length of an entire football field with your eyes closed. The overall risk of experiencing a crash or a near crash has been found to be up to 23 times higher. That's an increase of over 2,000%. 1 out of every 4 car crashes in the United States are caused by texting and driving. Tennessee implemented a hands-free law in 2019, making it illegal for a driver to hold a cell phone or mobile device with any part of their body and to write, send, or read any text-based communication. Tennessee uses primary enforcement of distracted driver laws, which means law enforcement can pull you over if they see a cell phone in your hand, violating the distracted driver laws. Although many drivers believe they are excellent and good enough to drive safely while texting, we have seen that this is not the case. Texting and driving can kill. It's that simple. A driver's world could end at the touch of a button. If you are tempted to text while driving, ask yourself if a text is more important than a life. Tennessee has been cited as the worst state regarding distracted driving fatalities. Distracted driving is responsible for approximately 460 deaths a year, a rate 5 times the national average. Preventing driving distractions happens before driving ever begins. Before you hit the road, you should stow and secure all electronic devices, loose gear, and other possessions. This way, drivers won't be tempted to reach for them on the floor or the seat. Enlist a passenger to help carry out activities that could be distracting. Add destinations to your GPS navigation system before you start the trip. Adjust the seat positions, mirror settings, and steering wheel before you start driving. To manage distractions while driving, keep your eyes on the road. Avoid activities that take even one hand off the steering wheel, such as grooming or reaching for an electronic device. Do not use a cell phone while driving. Never use text messaging, email functions, video games, or the internet with a wireless device, including those built into the vehicle. If you cannot devote your full attention to driving because of some other activity, it's a distraction. Take care of it before or after your trip, not when you are behind the wheel. Nobody wants to live knowing that they took a life because they were distracted. Have you ever gotten tired when driving? Have you ever fallen asleep driving? Drowsy driving is a very big traffic safety issue. 1 out of every 3 drivers report falling asleep behind the wheel at some point. Over 1 out of every 10 drivers reported falling asleep behind the wheel in the past year. The NHTSA conservatively estimates that 100,000 police-reported crashes yearly are directly related to drowsy driving. Drowsiness is involved in about 1 out of every 8 fatal accidents. Each year, these crashes add up to an estimated 800 deaths, 40,000 injuries, and 100 billion in losses. Fall asleep crashes are about 50% more likely to result in a fatality or serious injury, because they tend to have high-speed impacts. Sleeping drivers do not apply the brakes to avoid or reduce the impact. This driver looks very tired and there is only one cure: getting rest. It is common to become drowsy or fatigued while driving, especially when driving late at night or on long, boring roads, and when drivers become tired, their driving abilities suffer. Drowsiness can negatively affect every aspect of driving. In fact, the effects of fatigue can be similar to the effects of alcohol. That's one reason why drowsy driving is recognized as a leading cause of traffic collisions. In fact, staying awake for 18 hours can cause impairment in your driving ability, approximately equal to a BAC of 0.05. After staying awake for 24 straight hours, a driver's impairment can be like that of a BAC of 0.10. Many drivers think that their bodies will tell them when they are tired so they can stop driving before fatigue sets in. However, about half of the time your body will show no signs of fatigue, which means that drowsiness can sneak up on any driver. The important point is not to rely on your body to give you signs that you are getting tired. The only solution to drowsy driving is to get enough rest before you hit the road. Also, take breaks when driving for more than 2 hours. Stop at least every 100 miles or every 2 hours and take a break from driving. Lastly, avoid driving while taking any medications that might cause drowsiness, such as decongestants. If you get tired on the road, pull over, find a safe place, and get the rest you need. Some warning signs that you are fatigued and may fall asleep behind the wheel. You can't stop yawning. You can't remember the last few miles. You find yourself drifting out of your lane. Your eyes droop or close. You experience near misses, or you find yourself following too close to vehicles in front of you. The thing to remember is that you cannot rely on your body to give you signs that you are tired. You may be part of the 1/2 of all people involved in fall-asleep crashes whose body does not give them any warning signs. They fall asleep completely without warning. You may have heard some quick fixes to help you stay awake behind the wheel. Suggestions like consuming caffeine like coffee or soft drinks, turning up the radio, rolling down the windows, adjusting the AC temperature and fan speed. However, the effects are only temporary. The body's need for sleep will eventually override the brain's effort to stay awake. To prevent drowsiness, you want to start the trip fresh and get a good night's sleep before heading out. Driving during daylight hours. Starting late at night and driving straight through is unsafe. This strategy puts themselves and their passengers at higher risk. Plus, they are generally wiped out the next day. Share the responsibility by traveling with others. Prepare your route to identify total distance, stopping points, and other logistical considerations. Take a regular break. A good rule of thumb is to stop every 2 hours or 100 miles. These are excellent suggestions to prevent drowsy driving. However, if you do become drowsy, the best solution for drowsy driving is to stop driving, find a safe place, and get the rest you need before getting back on the road. The body needs sleep, or problems can occur. Unfortunately, many tired drivers don't recognize that they are tired and that they may be impaired just as if they had consumed alcohol. Although some drivers try different ways to help keep themselves awake and alert, they are still tired, and their risk of having an accident remains very high. Sometimes, we get tired behind the wheel, but sometimes we get angry. It happens to all of us. Sometimes, we get angry when other drivers tailgate, cut us off, turn without signaling, or weave in and out of traffic. We have all heard the term aggressive driving or road rage, but what do those terms mean? Is there a difference between aggressive driving and road rage? Aggressive driving occurs when a driver operates a vehicle in a pushy or bold manner, has a general aggression mindset without focusing on a specific person or vehicle, or a disregard for traffic controls and general conventions of safe driving. Road rage occurs when a driver uses the vehicle or some other weapon to threaten or cause harm to another roadway user, usually in response to a traffic incident. It is criminal behavior directed toward a specific person or vehicle. Road rage is frequently an escalation of emotions, generally ignited by aggressive driving behaviors. Examples of aggressive driving are exceeding the speed limit, tailgating, failing to obey traffic laws, and making improper turns and maneuvers. Examples of road rage are throwing objects at a vehicle, yelling or making rude gestures at a specific roadway user, attempting to ram another vehicle. Both are bad news for driving safety and your well-being. Emotions can cause crashes, just like alcohol and fatigue. Anger is dangerous and can grow into road rage, not a good thing behind the wheel. One key is to do what you can to prevent other drivers from becoming angry with you. Avoid changing lanes unnecessarily. Always use your turn signals before turning or changing lanes. Generally, you should never make another vehicle slow down because of a lane change or entering the traffic flow. Also, avoid using aggressive or offensive hand gestures when communicating with other drivers. You do not want to be anywhere near drivers experiencing road rage. If you find yourself near an angry driver, here are a couple of tips. Do not respond to that driver and avoid eye contact. Be tolerant and forgiving. They may be having a bad day. Be sure to allow enough room around your vehicle so you can escape if you need to. Do not get out of your vehicle. Contact 911 for necessary assistance. If necessary, drive to a busy public place with witnesses, such as a hospital, fire station, or busy convenience store or gas station. Remember, you can only control your behavior, so behave wisely and always make good judgments. Aggressive driving leads to road rage. Here are some tips to prevent yourself from driving aggressively. Leave plenty of time to reach your destination. We tend to be more aggressive when we are short on time. Spread goodwill. Emotions can be contagious. Direct your emotions to other actions rather than at the individual themselves. If you are upset, delay driving or ask someone else to drive. The best practice to prevent angering another driver is never to cause another driver to change their speed or direction. That means not forcing another driver to use their brakes or turn the steering wheel in response to something you have done. It means timing your moves carefully, like making sure you have plenty of space before pulling into traffic so another driver doesn't have to slow down even a bit. When you force other drivers to respond to a situation you cause, there's a good chance they will become angry with you. Related to aggressive driving is the issue of how to deal with red light runners. Red light runners are extremely dangerous. The resulting crash is often a T-bone crash where one vehicle crashes into another perpendicularly. This sort of side impact collision is very dangerous, and the occupants in the car hit from the side are at very high risk of injury. That's why it is always a good idea not to rush into intersections as soon as the light turns green. In fact, it is a good idea to assume that another driver will run the red light and act accordingly. Having your headlights on, even during the day, can also be useful as you might be just that much more visible to any approaching red light runner. Another approach to red light runners is to turn into the innermost lane if you are turning onto a multi-lane roadway. This allows the red light runner to move into the open lane instead of crashing into you. Distractions, drowsiness, and emotions can impair driving abilities and significantly increase risk. Pretty much everyone understands that alcohol and medications impair driving abilities, but fewer truly recognize the real impairment risks resulting from these other causes. Remember the acronym FAN. When you drive, stay focused, stay awake, and stay nice. Of course, it is not that simple, but it is a great phrase to remember. As with any potential impairment, it is your decision whether you become impaired and experience the consequences if something goes wrong.